COVID's research. Airline bookings dropped big last month, and now the TSA reports that just over 1 million passengers screened at U.S. airports yesterday was the fewest in a day since April. There's more COVID financial aid going out in another state.
Oregon reopens today an online portal for new applications for the state's emergency rental assistance program that temporarily shuttered last month due to a backlog of applications and due to a lack of money to fund the program. The reopening is expected to only be limited for emergency rental assistance depending on the availability of more funds. Nearly 34,000 households in Oregon have received more than $235 million in rental assistance over pandemic-related hardships. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
David Ortiz is going to be a baseball Hall of Famer.
That's what pretty much every player dream of.
That was the Boston Red Sox star's reaction on MLB Network after Ortiz was the only player voted into the Hall by the baseball writers. I'm Dave Anthony. This is Fox News.
WPTV First Alert Weather on W. Brought to you by Code Red Roofers. Code Red Roofers cares and calls you back. Shows up and finishes on time. 287-2829. Code Red Roofers, the roofers who respond. Now here's the First Alert meteorologist.
Your WPTV First Alert forecast this afternoon, highs in the low to mid-70s, a mix of sun and clouds, and a 50% chance for scattered on and off showers and a couple of afternoon thunderstorms. Tomorrow and Friday, highs in the upper 70s, partly sunny skies, and some spotty showers possible throughout the day, but a little bit more sunshine. Saturday, rainfall possible in the morning will dry out throughout the afternoon. Highs for the weekend forecast only in the 60s. I'm WPTV First Alert meteorologist Katya Hall for WSTU 1450, Martin County's Heritage Station.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jensen Beach, Hope Sound, Martin County's Heritage Station.
It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Good morning, and here we are. Not a sunny day today, but it is a little cloudy and overcast, which is very unusual for the Treasure Coast, but we're experiencing our winter, and I think we have our few cold days that we're getting used to, but ahead of that, we have a wonderful show on tap. Yeah, and welcome back, Eric Miller. Talk about
2022.
2022. Happy New Year.
Get on the train, folks. Let's go. It's a whole new year, a whole new way.
It is. Something you say that because Brightline is now running up and down the coast. They're doing test runs.
Oh, I just can't wait. You know, to stand outside and wait for a train that stops every 60 freaking feet to pick people up that moves 100 miles an hour in between. It makes so much sense.
Oh, exactly. It makes so much sense. So, and we also have between us the esteemed Councilwoman Susan Gibbs Thomas from Indiantown. So thank you so much for coming in today. We're going to have a lot of wonderful updates. Before we get into the show with the Councilwoman and with Eric, I've got to always I appreciate my sponsors. So first of all, there's one out by you, Eric, Indiantown Marina. It's just, Scott Watson's Indiantown Marina. It is South Florida's best storage facilities. Of course, we're going to be looking at hurricane season that's coming up and give them a call. They'll take reservations early to make sure you have a spot. I really can't recommend a better place to keep your boat than Indiantown Marina because it is super safe on the Okeechobee Waterway. But not only that, it's a do-it-yourself and full-service boatyard. Best of both worlds, electrical, mechanical, prop and shaft work, bottom painting, just complete boat service, whatever you need. So you can give the folks out there a call at 772-631-3272. That's Indiantown Marina, 631-3272. And also, the best kept secret in Martin County is so fun. The Fish House Art Center in Port Salerno. if you haven't been there, you'd have to check it out. Port Salerno is just a cute little town right there on the water, right in the pocket.
Yep.
And Fish House Art Center has got all kinds of really neat stuff in there. You can check them out online first before you go at thefishhouseartcenter.com. Give them a call at 772-221-5482. Again, that's Fish House Art Center. Local artist, boat charters, marina, craft and creamery that has beer and 24 flavors of ice cream. Just a lot of fun stuff. So Fish House Art Center. And finally, for all you people out there with businesses and need some commercial financing, forbearances, working remotely, and internet shopping. Retail space and rental income have been hit hard by COVID. If you're looking to restructure your debt, obtain financing or equity, Commercial Mortgage can help you out. Tim Mullen at Commercial Mortgage has been providing debt restructuring services since 2003. Tim never charges a front fee and all consultations are free. Tim only gets paid if he provides you a debt workout. Looking for a debt solution or financing? Give Tim a call at 772-872-6099. 872-6099 or visit commercialmortgagellc.com to schedule your free consultation. And folks, as we're going through the course of the show today, you can call into the studio at 772-220-WSTU. That's 220-9788. And of course, I'm always watching here on Facebook Live as well, and can certainly pass on your comments through the Facebook Live feed. So we've got all that out of the way, and you both have been very patient, and I am excited for this show. We're going to have some Indiantown and talk about Martin updates. So, Eric.
Well, I thought of a couple stories while you were talking about your sponsors there, the Fish House. I used to live in Rocky Point for a number of years.
Yes.
I was back in there. That's where I almost ran over Sarah Hurd.
Yeah, so you've said
God,
that. That was
and then Scott Watson, I think, is probably a good lead-in for us to be able to open the door over here with a neighbor of mine, Susan Gibbs Thomas, and talk a little bit about Scott and the marina out there at Indiantown. The marina is a wonderful place, though, by the way. I mean, it's a culture out there because you have people that live on their boats down there. You have a place that you can go and recreate, outdoor activities on the water. It's really a great place to visit and to keep your boat. And Scott runs a very good business down there. But in terms of Scott's business, Scott has, or had at least, a certain number of property rights. And he's been on here to talk about this before. If you remember, he's had some problems with Indiantown through the years in being able to continue to operate with the same level of governmental quote-unquote rights that were restricted on him, I should say. I mean, anytime you restrict somebody by limiting them to certain things, it's a restriction, it's not a granting. But the county granted him more development rights on his property that it seems that Indiantown is having a hard time being able to keep up with, and all of a sudden, because they became a village. Well, maybe Susan could tell us more about it. Do you know anything about what's going on with Scott? Last I heard, he was still trying to get some of those land development rights back that he's due. I mean, just because the village went into effect doesn't mean that a property owner has to lose his value in what they have because someone else decided to put a government around them. What's going on with Scott? Any news? Any updates?
No, not that I'm aware of. I know
Gotcha.
It's an ongoing process. Scott has been diligent in the dealings with Indiantown, and I appreciate his patience. I appreciate his willingness to bring forth things that are a concern.
right.
So it's an ongoing process.
It speaks to his character, like I was saying. I mean, I would have been there with a sledgehammer just knocking down doors telling him this isn't right, but that's the way I'm a little bulldog anyway.
And folks, Scott Watson was in here and spoke about a lot of those issues. So if you go back into the archives, you can go to the CaseyIngramShow.com, look at show archives, and you'll find that show with Scott Watson. And it's shocking, really, what he's had to deal with since the village was incorporated.
I really do hope, Susan, that the process pans out in the favor of what is, one, American, two, just right, and three, in a way that doesn't bring adverse legal action against the village, because when you try to restrict someone's property rights, this is still America. I don't see Scott Watson as being the type that's going to stand for having something stripped from him and to kowtow to a a village governmental system that seems to be being run more by Howard Brown than your council, quite honestly, in looking at it from the outside. And I don't think he's going to put up with it, personally.
And Howard Brown
I really
is
don't
the
think,
village
I don't expect you to
manager.
comment on that, but I mean that would be the message that I'm seeing from the outside on that, and it doesn't look good. It really doesn't look good. But a lot of things aren't looking really good in Indiantown. But tell us something that is good in Indiantown.
Right.
What's going on?
Yes.
Would love to. Thank you so much. And like I brought my memory with me. I brought my
Perfect.
yeah, my little notes here to let everybody know what's happening in Indiantown, and there is good things happening in Indiantown.
Of course.
Our last council meeting, we had a presentation from the YMCA and what they are. I don't want to. They've already brought to Indiantown their branch out there that has a pool, along with they do swim lessons. They offer those free of charge, which is needed.
That's
So
huge, free of
needed.
charge. Huge.
Yeah, but that pool is a huge monetary commitment, and it has not been utilized to the fullest. So what they are looking to do, and what their presentation was, take half of the pool that will remain for swim instruction.
Okay.
Take the other half and create a splash pad.
Oh, nice.
So it would be utilized better by the community. And so they made a wonderful presentation. And as a matter of fact, the local Indiantown Chamber of Commerce had their installation banquet at Kai Farms this last Friday, and there was an impromptu sort of auction, and they raised $15,000 for the local
Wonderful.
Y.
Wonderful.
So that was a great thing. Also, this coming week,
Can I back you up? The presentation, who was it made to? The council?
it was made to the council. Yes,
Are they
it was.
asking the
Chris-
council to put in tax dollars on this?
They're wanting to discuss it. They're wanting to discuss.
What are your feelings about using tax dollars on a public-private partnerships, tax dollars with private entities? How do you feel about that?
That is a very good question. And right now, I would have to look at the project, would have to see what it is, see what they're asking, see what the ask is, and
Does
see
it matter?
see if it's. Yeah, it does. To
If
me,
you-
it matters.
Okay.
I want to look at whatever is brought forward. I want to research. I want to look. I want to know why I believe.
Would this have happened without the village being in place, the formal village?
What with the why?
Yeah. Would this be something that would naturally be evolving, like the chamber raising $15,000 and people
Yes,
stepping
it
up
would.
to help?
It would, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Because the community has always rallied before we were incorporated or not.
Well, that's what I was saying. I mean, in the beginning, you and I were both against the incorporation, as we're almost 40% of the people in Indiantown. And I think for me, this is one of the reasons that I see is that the government now has become a divisive factor within the village. And I'm seeing these good things that are happening, but they're not happening because the village is there. Those good things have been happening for a very long time, and with greater concentration of unity, in my opinion, in Indiantown. You know, there were outsiders, and then there were Indiantown people that lived there, and that was the end of it. Mm-hmm. And we would welcome insiders in. I mean, I was welcomed in, okay? I have not been there more than a decade, and I was welcomed in from day one. But the divisiveness that's taking place right now seems to be an outcropping of the fact that the council and the village government at this point, I don't think, have proven what the people of the independence movement in Indiantown, Scott Watson being one of them, and he sat in here and said he was wrong,
Right.
Not too long ago, a year or more ago. And where are these people with the independence movement that are allowing the types of things that are taking place and the transgressions that are taking place? It's especially a lot, and you're not going to bring this up, so I'm going to because you won't. A lot of the attacks that are taking place on you from council members and the gamesmanship that's being played by Howard Brown within that village are wrong. Okay? And I think it needs to be said, and it needs to be said in front of you, and you are to be congratulated for your leadership. You have demonstrated more leadership in the time that you have been there by not being like me and not being a brass, outspoken individual and telling people to sit down and shut up. You have led like my mother would have led. You have led by example, and you have taken a lot of, pardon me, crap from people that is unwarranted and unnecessary. And I'm hoping that this election coming up, the people of Indiantown will actually reflect back on the leadership role that you have taken, the types of things that you have brought forward, and the way that these other council people have responded is juvenile, immature, and the village council right now, as the way it's allowing things to operate, I think is a detriment to the village itself. And I hate to interrupt the good things going because I know what the next one is on here, and it's a great thing. And you don't have to answer to that, but I want the people out there to know that you're doing one hell of a job. And the rest of that council, I got plenty I could say about them, but they speak for themselves.
Yeah, thank you. And I can only speak for myself. I have never, as far as I'm aware, I could be corrected. Somebody please show me a record on the meeting where I have done a personal attack. I never have made it personal. I think there is a difference between somebody reacting emotionally and somebody reacting passionately. You can have a passion for something.
Right.
That's me.
But but you do not have to have your feelings dictated by emotion. And I think that we as a council need to learn that fine line. I also think that we need to deal with fact. We need to learn to be supervisors, and that is a whole different level of having authority.
Right.
But you also serve the people, and we have to remember that we have bosses. We're not the boss, that we do have bosses. And kind of a segue into that, one of the bosses of Indiantown was Thelma Waters.
Right, right.
What an awesome woman, and what an awesome heritage that she
was.
left in the village. And that is now, it's generational, because her family is stepping up. And I know that her daughter, Phyllis Waters Brown, she has taken the lead, and they have created, and they are doing a community-wide cleanup in Indiantown this Saturday. And that is one of those community-based things. It is not a government cleanup activity. It is the Waters family stepping up.
Oh, wonderful.
And still, they live in the community, they love the community, and it's a community that Thelma helped create.
Can I overemphasize a little bit about this? And
Absolutely.
Tam will have representation there.
Okay.
So will the Indiantown Veterans Association. We're going to be helping with some of the logistics and transport of some of the debris. And the way that I'm understanding this cleanup, it's more than walking around with little picking up grabbies, picking up trash out of the ditches. There are people in Indiantown that have either economic or physical needs through age and or economics that are unable to physically or financially keep a lawn cut, to keep trees trimmed, to keep roofs patched.
Right.
Okay, there are people in our community, while we sit on the water out here and look at our munificence, there are those types of people that still exist within
Struggling.
our county.
Mm-hmm.
And the Waters family is doing more than picking up soda bottles. They have reached out to these people, and they have found corporate sponsors to come in and help with the dollars and cents for the big projects that need to be done, the tree trimming, the hauling, the cutting of the grass, the mowing. And I'm hoping that this will evolve, because we have a friend in common that we've dealt with that could use the outside of his house painted, disabled. He's got a rod in his leg, for goodness sake.
Right,
I mean,
right.
the guy, he's amazing, and he does what he does. But this cleanup is good, and this is the type of soul
Sounds
that
like it, yes.
Indiantown really has. It has a soul of its own that lives and breathes. It has a culture. And the culture has been dominated again by the outside forces of Howard Brown, who was involved in an FBI investigation in Opelika. He brought Althea Jackson with him, and I believe the clerk actually came with him from past experience and such too. And his divisive nature has created, and it displays on your council. I just hope that the rest of the council wakes up fast enough, or the voters do in this next election, to understand where the lack of energy to your council could be doing so many good things like staying out of the way, but instead it's manifested itself in every little aspect because the egos of those council people are being eaten alive by Howard Brown, and he's fulfilling them. I mean, it's sad to watch. This is Jordan Peterson would have a blast with sitting and watching, living in the middle of this ant farm. I'll tell you what, he'd eat it up. But anyway, that's two good things that are happening. What's the third?
And we have more, but if you want to come and participate, it's going to be a glorious day to get out.
It will.
It's going to be nice and cool, so you will not be sweating.
Where do folks meet? What time?
We're going to meet in the Post Park, right in the middle of town. Come to the red light in town, in the middle of town, at Thelma Waters Boulevard.
At the Civic Center.
Yeah, and the Civic Center there.
And Booker Park Civic Center.
Yeah. So there will be a couple of places. 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
8 to 2 is what they're anticipating.
Do they need to bring any supplies with them? Paintbrushes or shovels?
No, not that I have been told.
Okay.
Work
Not that I've been
gloves,
told, yeah.
your boots, and you're not coming out to pick up water bottles.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. That's very exciting. Yep. And I have to ask you, again, we're speaking with Eric Miller, talk about Martin, and we also have Councilwoman Susan Gibbs Thomas from Indiantown here. Susan, you were the first mayor in Indiantown.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you hold any political office prior to being elected in Indiantown?
Nobody did.
So
our council is
all fresh.
rookies. Yeah, we're all fresh. Yeah.
What's been kind of the eye-opening or shocking thing is, Eric's talking, he's got a lot of frustrations with a lot of the decisions that have been made out there, but you sitting on the council, he's wonderful accolades, and you really have been a voice of reason and giving it, trying to drive the ship in a fair manner. But what has been surprising to you, just because you didn't come from a political background, here you get elected, you become mayor, through your experience there, and I know that there's been a lot of struggles, but what has been shocking to you about, you had expectations of how the council would be, and it's not up to those expectations?
Well, having never served, I didn't know what to expect. So there wasn't really any expectations that have not been met because I had no idea.
Okay.
As far as the interesting thing that I have learned is the time that it takes. Because when you're in business and when you're used to that, having that supervisory role, and you're able to say, okay, this is what we need to do. You make those decisions. Okay, we've got the funding. Make it happen. You can make it happen in days, maybe weeks. When it comes to government, it's can be very time consuming because it has to be figured out by staff. Then staff brings it to say it's something to do with zoning. So then you bring it to the PZA board, that Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, and then they have to review it, and then they get it to the council, and then the council, has to review it, and so it takes time. And if it's a project like a road, then it's, well, can we get the funding and how long, and then it's engineering before we actually get to. So something that we were talking about 2 years ago may just now becoming reality.
Okay.
So that's the frustrating thing, and I think that's a thing that the public sometimes on certain issues has a hard time understanding.
They want a quick resolution, and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, well,
government.
Quicker than years.
Right.
Yeah.
And the last time I saw you, Susan, was when you had the gathering in the park to talk about the fire department issue.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was one of the things it really impressed me. And obviously, I'm not from
It was a great rally.
Indiantown.
People turned out.
It was a rally, but you gave the option for people to come out and speak their voices and hear about what was going on. As you said, you work for the people there, and that was a wonderful,
Again, though, the contrast was
on.
the rest of the village sat inside. The council sat inside and told people what was going to happen. They said they were trusting
the only
experts.
council person I saw
know
there
she
that
was.
day.
She was the only one there, and the rest
Such a
of them just
huge
kept
issue.
saying, "Trust the experts, forget the people."
So, and that it's important, and as a voice of the people, you truly have been. And I think you're a shining example. And you keep talking about the election that's coming up. How many seats are up? And that's in August, right?
Yeah, it's coming. It is coming. It's just around the corner, isn't it?
Right.
Oh, it's election time.
How many seats
again.
are up?
Well,
this time?
Anthony's seat is up, and so is Miss Jackie's, and so is Miss Susan's.
Okay.
So yeah, there's 3 seats.
It's an important election. That's right. So
It is an important election, and I really do hope that, we could talk about the race baiting that takes place. It seems that, every time Janet gets backed into a corner, she resorts to racial slurs, and now she's using age bias slurs. It's amazing to me to watch the level of, like you said, emotional immaturity that comes from these people. Jackie trying to cut you off at the last meeting, a mayor not letting a council person finish a thought and telling them that they had to be quiet. And by the way, I thought you did a great job at asking her to please stand down, that you weren't done yet, because she walks all over you in ways that I wouldn't tolerate. And it was nice to see you make her recognize the fact that you are an equal peer on that. And I hope that the examples that you're demonstrating are not so far of a foreign type of concept to them that they're unable to pick it up. But I just don't see people, Casey, to answer your question, like Anthony and Jackie changing their clothes and getting away with it, especially Anthony, because Anthony will go out and talk in one way. He's a great Fabian. He puts on the sheep's clothing to hide that he's a wolf, and then when it comes time to sit down, the sheep's clothing comes off. You're told to sit down. He knows better, and the wolf comes out. Well, he's going to be doing the candy dance for the next election, trying to convince people, using his words in a way, and he's thin, he's a veneer, and I'm hoping that the people can see through him. Large voting block in Indianwood. Hello, Indianwood. Right. Now is the time to start paying attention not only to what they say now, but what they have done in the past 4 years. And I think that's the important thing for any voter to look at. What did an incumbent do for you actually in terms of their votes, their outcomes, and are you better off for having them there?
Absolutely. When the village was incorporated, nobody had a record. There was no record to stand on. You couldn't see what type of council person they would be. Now we have that record, and boy, people, there's one thing that this show always stresses is you have to be involved, and it's so important to know who you're voting for, not just a name. There's reasons why you vote for a person, and if you want somebody to represent you, make sure that they are working for you and not have their own agenda. So
exactly,
this is coming up.
Use their own words. Judge them on their own words, their own actions, and their own votes.
And you can go to talkaboutmartin.com, and Eric, there's a lot of clips from the council meetings that you have on there, so people can judge for yourself. I mean, you don't have to tell them how to vote or what the council person stands for. You can go there and listen to them.
Listen to them in their own words. You'll be as upset as I am after a while if you spend as much time. And I want to chase Stuart for a while too. And I want to talk to you about the school board. We got to get back to that one.
We will
before the end of the show.
We will. We have Brent on the phone, and how are you doing today, Brent?
I'm all right. I just kind of cut in, see what's going on.
Are you from Indiantown out there?
No. I'm from. You know me. I'm from Palm Bay.
Oh, okay. So, how are things going in Palm Bay?
It's a struggle. It's like everywhere, and I look for it to get worse.
Brent, can I ask you a question on that, Brent? What are you seeing as a struggle, and what's getting worse? Is it your fuel prices? Are you experiencing food shortages in Palm Bay? What's the struggle?
Well, it's already the shelves and stuff. Or a few things, but gas is going up. It reminds me of Jimmy Carter. Joe Biden is just about a twin to Jimmy Carter and his policies.
Is this a time that you're spending more?
Well, I'm pretty tight. I don't spend, I'm low maintenance.
Is the Palm Bay government spending more? And Kenny Johnson? Isn't Kenny Johnson up your way in Palm Bay?
I think so.
Kenny Johnson, friend of Anthony Dowling's down here. Kenny Johnson was arrested and convicted a pedophile for texting. Yeah, he was on the school board, and he's a council he was a vice mayor up there or something like that?
Well, the Democrats seem to have a policy, and they could put their claws into different areas. It's almost like in unison.
Yeah, you know what? Mm-hmm. I agree with you completely. And to demonstrate that, you ever heard of a guy by the name of Robert Burns?
Yeah.
Robert Burns is associated with Guyton Stone, Janet Hernandez, and Anthony Dowling, 3 of the council people in Indiantown. And Robert Burns is a convicted rapist from way back in his military years, and he's got some other accusations that have been made. See, this is what I'm saying, why it's important to look at the people that you stand with and know who you're voting for, because Anthony, Guyton, and Janet, and I will say this 100 times over, and I've documented it, and I'm keeping this in the realm of politics. I'm not getting personal. They're asking for people to elect them to make decisions for other people. They put themselves out there for the scrutiny, and I'll keep it within those bounds, but they have put themselves politically in a camp with both Kenny Johnson and Robert Burns, who your state representative up there, Mr. Fine, is doing a great job of keeping these people in check, and he's to be commended. But yeah, well, man, I'm glad to hear you're listening up in Palm Bay. That's exciting.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
man,
Casey,
I'm in the lagoon struggle, and I know what you're talking about. It seems like when you get a politician that you want will go your way, it seems like the media and everyone just railroads them, and you can't get nothing done unless the media agrees. So,
well, I guess we need to stop listening to the mainstream media and listen to our neighbors and friends, and that's just it. You need to affect your local area the best that you can, the strongest way that you can, and I think that's why I spend so much time looking at the village of Indiantown, because they're right on my boundary.
I think the difference between independent reporting, you wouldn't have everybody agree on everything if it's independent reporting doing their own research, and that's when you would have debates. But it seems like propaganda is when everyone across the board agrees. If you watch the old World War II movies, that was propaganda, and that's kind of what we got now. It's like it's no independent. The reporters don't dig and come up with facts.
Well, Brent, you brought up a point that I'd like to ask Miss Susan a question on now, and I hope that things get better for you up there in Palm Bay. But Brent was talking about how the life's getting tougher for him. It seems that the taxpayer, the people that the governments look to for their funding for these nice little projects that they're talking about funding, and the taxpayer money that they're looking at putting into different public partnerships, have to come from somewhere. And the way that the economy, look at the stock market, anyone that cannot take a forecast over the horizon just a little bit and be in a position of financial leadership like the council people are should not be there. Spending money right now is not something that a council can do or should be doing, given the strong potential for a strong financial collapse, economic collapse, interest rates going up. There's a whole bunch of red bells, whistles, and signals going off. That
look at food prices.
Yeah, we can. You can hide from the storm clouds as long as you want and pretend they're not there, but they are. We're at the event horizon, and I just do you see the village?
I've been saying for a long time that they need to make a move, even small, to where people vote on how the money is spent. And then when the people vote on how the money is spent, then you will have a government that represents the people.
Amen.
Which is another question I have, and it goes back to where we started, Susan, if I can. Brent, thank you.
Yes, Brent, thank you so much for calling in.
Okay, I think I'm gonna hang up.
All right, buddy.
Take care, you guys.
Thank
Susan,
you, you
when we
too.
started, we asked where is the independence movement in Indiantown at this point? Because they were talking about, we don't want a big government. We just want the people to be able to take charge of their own life out here. And the first thing we did was we ran to an outsider, and we brought in outsiders from big government to come in, and they've created a system that you have to have a PZA board now. You have to have all of these different things because it's so big that you can't deal with it any other way. And because it's so big in such a small place, you lose control, and it centralizes itself in the village manager. I mean, you guys are being led with false choices. You're not even being given the real choices that the independence movement said they wanted to take off and move with. Where are those leaders? You know, are they getting their contracts? Are they feeling that their property values are going up enough now and that's all they wanted? Or were they really there for an independence movement? Where is the independence in putting your complete faith in Howard Brown and saying an attack on this council or an attack on the village manager with my long black hair is an attack on our village manager, on our council? Blah, I almost said that. It makes no sense to me how these other four council people can sit up there and be willing to sell their community down the road because they feel empowered. I think that's the biggest problem, is that they're feeling a sense of power that they've never had, and they're not groomed and ready for it. They're not ready professionally. They're not ready professionally for sure to be in the position. And to demonstrate that, all you have to do is look at the evaluation of the village manager. That was a perfect example. Here you're bringing fact to the table that says this village manager touts his ICMA record. Janet tells us that he's an expert because he's an ICMA certified city planner, International City Managers Association. International, so it has to be great. He's a globalist. He has to know more than you and me. So we have to listen to this guy because we don't know what's going on in the government. You know, that's what I'm seeing from, well, we don't know. He's the expert. We have to listen. So what does he do? He brings you 5 in one at a time, and he figures out, you're good for my agenda, you're good for my agenda, there's 3 votes right there, and if I can get a 4th, I'm good. And he's manipulating the system to a point that it's detrimental for the village. But back to the conversation we were having with Brent. What about the spending? Shouldn't you guys really be reeling it in right now, given the financial impacts that are potentially coming down the road? That was a long way to get to the question.
It is. And I got to say, when Brent was calling in, I saw Susan, he said, you know, the people should vote on how much, you know, the government is spending if there's spending proposals. And you were shaking your head, yeah, you know, that would be nice.
That is a great, I love that because we do have an issue that's coming, you know, before us that we have moved forward tentatively on, is a village hall.
Oh my Lord.
So we have just a single phase. It's not a multi-phase. It's just voted on a company that will bring back and say, this is what it's going to cost. This is what it can be. This is what it's going to cost. And then that's it. And moving forward.
Won't be it.
Well, no, just hang on.
That's the first step that they'll take to get it to a vote.
That is the first step.
50% over market value for the property that they're on. 50%.
Okay. So that is the first step. We chose a company that is the only step that they included. The other company was a whole step by step by step by step. So this, once it comes back and we get an idea, okay, it's going to be however many millions of dollars, I think that is a great idea.
Put it out for referendum.
Put it forward for a referendum, because we have done that already. We would not be making history in doing this.
I think it's
because
an excellent
there's been a
idea, too.
couple of items that we put up for referendum, and the public said yay to one and no to the other one.
Can your charter be changed to reflect that? Could the council choose to change their village charter to say that any expenditure over a certain amount has to be approved at referendum by the voter?
Well, that would have to be changed by the voter. It would have to be a referendum. The referendum would have to be approved by the... That's the only way our charter gets changed.
Okay, but couldn't the council bring those changes forward for a referendum vote?
Yes, that's what we did before we brought two.
You could through leadership initiate the
two that were brought before for the public to vote on were initiated by the council.
Right.
Now it can be initiated by the community.
So the community could initiate a referendum.
It sounds like a good referendum.
To say, look, if we can't vote these bums out at least, or they're out of control with something, or no matter who's in there, we want to have more control. Indiantown or even Stewart could do this too. Any of them could through referendum, given our type of rule, put that into the charter.
Yeah, the people of Indiantown do control the charter. Absolutely.
Good.
Susan, there's a couple comments here off Facebook I want to share. One's a question, one's a comment. First, Kim Prescott, thank you for tuning in. She said, I had the pleasure of meeting Susan at the Indiantown Chamber event on Friday. Susan is such a graceful lady, and it is clear to see how much she loves her community. And
thank you. That's precious.
Very nice. Very nice. And Diane Lewis, thank you for tuning in. She said, what happened to the grant money to Indiantown to repair the fire hydrants?
That is a good question. The money that was the grant money that came from the Martin County, I think that's what she is talking about, that agreement that we have with Martin County.
They sliced off some federal funds that came through from the COVID.
I'm not too sure where it came from, but that 5-year agreement was for fire flow. They wanted it to go toward fire flow. And that could be hydrants, that could be improving the pressure capacity.
Okay.
Looping, that was a whole thing. So there were several things. And I know the citizens concerned is about the fire hydrant that is right on their street, right in front of their home.
You bet.
Does it work? Yeah. Does it work, and does it have pressure?
Old lady.
And I know that Diane reached out to me, as a matter of fact, about one that's right on her street. And as a matter of fact, I questioned that this morning in a meeting that I had with the village manager, and that information will be coming back. So, Diane, we are getting that information, and I will be getting back with you on that.
If I remember, it was $300,000 a year for 5 years to the tune of $1.5 million, and it had to be put back into basically what amounted to, like you said, fire flow or the water system. It was a backdoor way of making a grant to use it for the water plant, which
needed. It is definitely needed, yeah.
Big millstone around the village's neck, but it had to be done. I mean, you've got to provide water for the people as part of the local government. If you're going to have a government, you got to provide these things. But yeah, I think I've spoken, and you're friends with, and because of the size of the community, more than one firefighter that lives in the area. In Indiantown, and I've heard estimates upwards of anywhere from 30 to 50% of the hydrants are non-functional, that they won't open, that they break off when you try to use a wrench on them, that the fire department actually keeps a map of where the functional ones are so that they can park closer to those if there's a fire someplace.
This is very interesting to follow up on, to make sure that these repairs are made, because it was part of the deal when Martin County kept their fire station in Indiantown.
Yes.
Certainly they need to be able to put out fires, and they need to use the water.
People forget about too many things, and these are one of the things. I'm glad to see that Diane's listening, and thank you. She's reminded me about that in the past, too.
Right.
Well, now, also, it is my understanding that they are required. There is a required annual, at least, I don't know how often they do it, but go around and check all the hydrants. So there should be a record of that. And that may be an interesting thing to, I'm sure a public records request to see. Yeah.
Right.
Somebody in the press might want to, Barbara Cloudis might want to do an investigative piece on that. That would be nice. She just did a nice one for Jupiter Island.
Right.
And she's moved out to Indiantown now. She's a resident out there with us.
Yes.
In Indiantown. So shout
Martin
out to
County
Barbara.
Currents, Indiantown Currents. It's the Currents basically here in the county that.
Let me ask you a question, if I can, about it. Can we talk something Tom Campini had written in his last newsletter? He seems to think that there's animosity between you and Janet because of the League of Cities thing that went on. And I know better than that, but he also mildly pointed out in there what I think is the real fact of the matter, and that is that had the council not been malicious towards you because you were actually becoming successful in that position, which was good for the village, but it was bad for them because they couldn't keep up, and they're ego driven. They're chasing after something, and that's why all Susan has to do is walk and they'll follow, because they don't know where they want to go. But Susan had an opportunity to get into higher leadership with the League of Cities just through the way that this system worked, because of tenure and being there and her involvement in the process. She would have moved up higher, which would have given the village even more access to higher level individuals.
Can you hold that thought for
Sure,
1 second?
not a
Just
problem.
like I got to go to the previous conversation. Diane wrote back, as she said, she's been here 5 years and the fire hydrants have never been checked in Indianwood, and the fire hydrants just don't work. So, 5 years.
Wow.
Diane, you might want to come and stand in front of the council this evening or tomorrow night and during public comment and ask that question, and see what kind of an answer you get, or backpedal from the staff to tell you what can and can't be found. I'd make a public information request right there at the podium and say, I'd like to see what's happened. Can someone please give us an update, and see how they deal with you. They're only going to give you 3 minutes, and they're probably not going to respond because that's the way their attorney tells them, but give it a shot. Give it a shot. But
Going back to
to
the
go
treasure-
back to
yep.
this, at the last meeting, just to get down into the meat of this for a minute, at the last meeting, you brought up some very valid points, and that is that Janet, who took by self-appointment, basically, the position that you had, because I think she was envious and she felt like well, never mind, who cares what was in her head. She ended up through the vote with the position that you had, which took away that leadership potential for the village, which was really a bad move. Regardless of why those actions took place, it seems to me that for her to take the direction that she did with you at the last meeting was like some kid standing there that had just been found out. The lights were turned on and their hand was in the cookie
What do you
jar.
mean for the
And
listeners
what I
that
mean by
weren't there?
this is this, that at the last meeting, Susan brought forward an item that staff somehow put on the discussion list instead of an agenda item, and Susan had asked that it go as an agenda item, which there is a technical reason for wanting to do that. Agenda items have a little bit higher priority and maneuverability when they're on an agenda versus just discussion. They can be cut off at any point in discussion. Staff, again, screwed up, put it on as a discussion item. So when discussion came around, Susan pointed out, hey, look, Miss Janet, you're our representative on the League of Cities, and I'm going to paraphrase a lot of this for time's sake here, but you have been down there now for how long? 6 months? 6 months to a year? She's been serving down there now?
Oh, we reorganized in September, so
Okay,
it's
so
been
she's
over
been down
a
there
year
since September
of last year.
Yeah, and she was given instruction by the sitting mayor in the village to request something of the league. The league said, no, you report back to them and tell them this, and there haven't been any committee reports that have come back whatsoever.
She's been on since September 2020 or September 21?
2020.
2020.
Not to say that she isn't attending, it's just that she's not following through on her duties to let the rest of the council know through proper communication is one thing. Sending an email out, even if it was descriptive enough, is one thing for the council, but the public doesn't have the opportunity to know what's going on with these outside influential organizations. This is like being part of the United Nations for a village, okay? Small government, big regional groups of people, and state level groups that get together. It's very important that the people know. For her to go back to her racist attack against you and say she did, Janet broke out in tears again, got up like a child and walked out of a meeting that had yet to be closed because of her. You are prejudiced, you are racial, you are these. It is because I am Mexican, I am Hispanic.
And you were pointing out she hasn't
crying.
reported back to the council her meetings at the Treasure Coast League of City. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and they voted her back in.
Well, here's what happened, and none of this is personal. I have, like I said before, and I started out bringing these facts forward that it is not personal. It's just an issue that we need to deal with. And it seems like when an issue is brought forward, it kind of spirals down into emotion rather than taking the emotion out of it and dealing with the fact. And that's what we need to do.
A leader takes ownership.
Yeah. And so, and also, you know, it has been stated on the council that personal attacks, we need to stop attacking each other. We need to get along. And and let me once again say, I have never made it personal. Even when I was brought off of that, that is what the council chose to do. There are ramifications for choices, and one of them is that if we are rotating spots, board appointments every 2 years, some of boards you're not going to advance on because it may take 4 years to get to the top spot. And I don't think that was realized. But quite honestly, I'm not in that situation. So that's not where I'm at. That's not my focus. What my focus is, making sure that the people in Indiantown get represented, making sure that the information comes back to, because yes, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that is not translated into a meeting. And so there's somebody at home that listens to every one of those meetings. And they might come up with, well, this was at this meeting, but it was never brought back. You know, what happened with that? Meanwhile, behind the scenes, you know, you have, well, that's been taken care of, but it never gets out and finished and taken care of, wrapped up for the public, for our bosses to know what's happening. So I have never, and I do not want to make this personal. In the last elections, I did not endorse anybody. The rest of the council was endorsing each other. I will not endorse anybody. And it's not a personal thing. It's just my morals and my principles and the way that I look at things, because if I endorse somebody, if I endorse a person that's not the incumbent, okay?
Right.
And the incumbent wins, well, then they're mad at me.
Right.
If I endorse the incumbent and somebody else gets in, well, they're mad at me. It is my job to work with these people for what's best of Indiantown. Let the people of Indiantown choose who sits on that board.
Right.
It's not for me to tell them, yeah, this is a good one, this is a bad one.
That's absolutely right.
I hope Indiantown realizes that the rest of the council is not working with you. And that you are not actually a disruptive force. You are actually bringing critical thinking to the table.
It is my responsibility to handle me.
It is, and you do a great job of it.
That is what is my concern, and that is I cannot speak to what anybody else does. I will not speak to what anybody else does because they're responsible for them. I'm responsible for me.
You are, and you're looking out for the residents of Indiantown when you were asking for the reports for the Treasure Coast League of City meetings. Because your voters
and it was a
need
simple
to know.
ask. It would have been very simple, but it turns from dealing with facts and dealing with the situation as anybody that has been in a supervisory position.
It's not the only It's not the only time.
It's
even
an example
in
of
recent meetings this year. Okay, I mean, you were not allowed. Scott Watson was brought forward as a PZA nomination by Susan, right? And,
yes,
and the council would not even recognize a motion to accept Scott's nomination.
And that was their choice.
That's
their choice.
But that's what I'm saying. Choices, like you said, have consequences. We live in the here and now. When I wag my tongue, I know that what I say will be recorded. I know that I am going to be, in the past, able to be looked at, recognized, evaluated. My words will mean something because I said them. And that's what's happening, and I'm trying to say with these politicians that are out there in Indiantown, the Anthonys, the Jackies, the Guytons, the Janets, look at what they have done and said in the past, and there is a track record of incompetence, of emotional immaturity, and just in votes that are nonsensical to any kind of good that could be taking place for the people. They're coming out of Howard Brown's. Oh, jeez! It's a bad dichotomy. It's toxic out there, and the voters need to change it. It really is toxic, And our environment's toxic enough in America. We need leaders like you, Susan. We need people that can stand there in the calm of the storm and tell me to be quiet and sit down, and it's all going to be okay. I get that, but
Be quiet
somebody,
and sit down.
yeah, I know, but somebody has to let them know what the rest of this council is doing, because you are too graceful, and you are not in the position to do it. I am. And that's why I'm doing it.
And I have to work with them.
I understand that. I don't.
And so I know that we're wrapping up.
Right, we have just a couple minutes here.
Yes,
yes.
I want to hit one
There's
more
another,
thing.
Yes, another good
one
thing
more
in
thing that's
Indiantown.
happening out in Indiantown. February the 5th is going to be at Indianwood Golf Club at the Outpost from 10 until 4. Lou's Crew, Antique and Classic Car and Hot Rods. It's presented by the Rolling Thunder Chapter 6. They are also going to be doing Chinese raffles, 50-50 raffles. There's going to be a U.S.-Vietnam War commemorative lapel pin dedication. They're going to have antique, classic cars, and hot rods. Y'all come.
Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun.
That will be.
We have
So-
to get the superintendent back on here for you and I to talk to him. I
We-
want to talk to him about this property tax
Okay.
distribution.
He
that's
will be
going on.
back on. He's going to be a regular. But thank you so much. We've had Susan Gibbs Thomas here from Indiantown, Eric Miller talk about Martin. Folks, I think
Deep breaths.
if there's anything you could take away from this show today is, my goodness, get involved in your local government. Follow what's happening. Know who you're voting for. Don't just vote for a name. What do they stand for? How are they going to represent you? So it's really important. And talk about change.
Amen.
It's coming up this year. There's 3 seats that are up for election. So
Right on.
I've got to go. We're wrapping up on time, but I'll see you next Wednesday here at 10 o'clock. Once again, thanks for tuning in.